So today we got a video we're going to do. It's been a long time since I've done a video. But this is going to be for the Umarex Notos. And this is my bottled version. This was the first one that I know of that was ever bottled. And anyway, as you can see on this one, I took the moderator off so I could get the Picatinny rail off of this shroud. And I got the barrel out of it and kind of done a little exploring with it. No real modifications at all, just the bottle. This could possibly go back to factory, except for anybody who follows this knows you have to cut the moderator down quite a bit to get it off of the barrel because it's molded right onto the barrel. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to talk to you about some of the different bottle conversions that you can get for these things and do yourself. And this one I made, and it's nothing really fancy, but I did have to have this lathe to do it with, and I know not everybody has got one of those. Not everybody's quite as crazy about the thing as I am, but I've done several air guns where I've bottled them, and even an arrow gun that I bottled. So this was just, you know, it was going to happen when I got this thing. That's the first thing I thought was I'm going to bottle that gun. So anyway, let me set the camera up in a different angle and I'll show you what we're going to talk about today. So this is my personal Umarex Notos. And there's a closer look at the bottle adapter that I made for it. The bottle and the regulator, nothing fancy. You can get those off of eBay or Amazon. It's a Chinese made bottle and regulator, and I bought the one that was already set to 2200 psi. If we can get that in the frame or not. Anyway, and I really didn't adjust it at all. I just bought it and put it on there. And of course, with this setup, there's no gauge to tell you what the regulated air pressure is on the gun. And I really wanted my adapter to be the smallest, compact, lightest one I could get. And then I went and put a 0.22 liter bottle on mine. And several months later, when I took it out iguana hunting with a friend of mine, I put this larger, what is this one? I think this one's a 0.3 liter. Yeah. If I can move the camera around a little bit more, it'd be great, wouldn't it? Anyway, it's a 0.3 liter, and the 0.22 liter was getting 100 shots per fill at the factory power level of 18 foot-pounds, right in the ballpark. And I don't know how many shots this bottle gets. I'm not that mad at my pellets to find out. So this one gets way north of 100 shots, going from 0.22 to 0.3 liters, and they're both 4,500 psi carbon fiber bottles. So this one's been shooting really good, and what I want to show you is some of the stuff that I've ordered just to actually get my hands on it and get a close look at it. Didn't know what I was really going to use it for yet. But this is a drop block made in China. It says super well. That's all that comes on this thing. It says super well. Same thing on here, I guess. Super well. It's kind of weird. I didn't see that when I ordered it. Anyway. This one comes with a gauge that screws in this hole here, a rebuild kit, if you've never seen one of these before. This part right here comes out. This is the actual adapter for a bottle to go from like a paintball style thread, paintball regulator I should say, like one of these. So this bottle will actually screw in there. But it does not give you any provision for sealing. This O-ring right here does not seal in the bottom of that the way it would if it were in a regular paintball fitting. It doesn't seal the same way. This one is meant to have a O-ring put right around the base. And since this one is a special 15 cubic inch bottle, it has smaller threads. It's the 5/8 11, I think 5/8 18. I don't remember what thread it is, but it's the 5/8. And this is indexable. So by taking this cap off here, you can loosen this thing up and turn it and put it back down in, and you can index your bottle so it sits however you want it to sit, hanging off of your gun, right? I should say you can't, there's no infinity. It has 1, 2, 3, 6 sides to it, so you can index it 6 different times till you get it, I guess, close to where you want it to be. But the regular paintball adapters that they have for these things, they would have an O-ring that fits like this, and that O-ring seals right here instead of down inside there. It seals right on the outside edge, just inside there. So anyway, you don't need that unless you want it regulated, and then you'll have to, like most of the standard paintball stuff you get in the Ninja style regulators, they have that where you can put O-ring in there and screw the thing right in, and you don't really have much indexing, but you can screw it right in and it'll work. This one is an M18, and it was meant to have a bottle screwed right on it. And in case you're wondering what this is an actual air gun valve. Do you see the hole in it right there? That's where the air would come out and go to the transfer port and out the barrel. And this is the actual valve I can push in with my finger, right? When this has got pressure on it, you can hit this with a small hammer and let the air come through, and it gives a pretty big blast of air. This has got no plenum space in it, hardly at all. So it wouldn't work if you're going to do like a 25 or 30 caliber. You couldn't use this on one, but this is basically made to fit onto like a Crossman 2240s, 2260s, whatever, you know, that kind of thing. This is meant for really doing a Crossman mod. And I have, this is an air tube I had done when I cut down my pistol and made it. This is a Crossman air tube, and that thing is made to fit inside one of these. It takes a little massaging, but that thing's made to fit inside something like this. And then you can drill and tap holes where you want them to make this thing fit and hang wherever you want it to hang on your gun. And anyway, you'd be the hammer tube and stuff, or the hammer spring and hammer that are in the factory gun with the grip, they would just strike this valve. You just need to lay this on the side of your tube and just determine where you're going to cut it at, and then drill and tap some very shallow holes. You can't put great big holes in it. You have to put very shallow holes in it, and that would hold it on. Anyway, that's enough about that stuff. The valve actually comes out, and this is the cheapest one. I don't think I gave 30 or 40 bucks for this from China. So these threads, these match the threads in the Notos, the infamous part 66, right? So this has got threads sticking out, and this piece would fit on here and screw right onto it. You take the barrel off, screw this thing on, and if you get lucky, it'll hang reasonably straight with the O-ring in place and sealing. If you don't get lucky, this thing's going to be turned too far or not turned enough, right? If it needs to go a little bit more and it's seated up against this and it won't turn anymore, you would take this thing and either belt sand it. Would be the easiest way if you have access to a belt sander. If you have a CNC mill, or not a CNC, a manual mill, you can take this part out of here and put this block in a vise and clamp it, and take a cutter and cut a little bit off of this, and then take this piece off of your gun and thread it in there until when it tightens down, they're lined up. You just take light cuts on it until you get this lined up. That's what they call timing it. Clocking or timing. That's what they're referring to, is getting this thing to where it lines up on this and hangs straight down. So this is the cheapest one, and you can use a regulated paintball tank on this. This tank right here with this regulator will fit in here with that O-ring and seal up. So that's what they're talking about when they talk about timing these things. And I want to say I gave 30 or 40 bucks for this on eBay. So let's put this one away. We'll move on to the next one. And the next one is going to be one I got online. As soon as I saw them, I ordered one to see what they were all about. This is the one that many of you have probably seen. If you've been in the Facebook groups, this one you've probably seen. So this is the exact same thing, only this is a regulated unit. No bottle regulator. This one has a built-in regulator. That's how you adjust it. You would loosen the nut and put an Allen wrench in there, and counterclockwise increases pressure, clockwise decreases pressure. This would be your bottle pressure, and this would be your regulated pressure. You notice it only goes up to 2,000 in the green, and for a Notos you're probably going to want to go to 22 to 24, depending on how you want to tune your gun. This one also comes with a an air gun valve with a rebuild kit, which you don't need. So this is the part that you would take out and not use. And this was $62 to my door from, I don't know if I got it from AliExpress. I can't remember right now. Anyway, these are the threads that fit this, right? Same deal as the other one. When you tighten this thing down on there, it may not line up. It may stick up in the air. It may be turned too far. And if you tighten this part down, I think you can get it to go down. It's about flush, perfectly flush. Now, I think people have said they can get this to go down in there a little farther, so that you can either belt sand or machine this off. Of course, you have to clean this to no end. That's the silver part down in there. That's the bottom of the regulator. That's it. That's this piece. When you unscrew this, the regulator comes out. So this one has got a feature on it that I kind of like. This one has a cap. So you can screw your carbon fiber bottle, your M18 carbon fiber bottle, directly on this. This would sit on your gun, and it would be roughly that long. As long as my shortest block, it would be that long. Sorry, it goes on like that. It would be like that. So the cool thing about this is that you can put this cap on this thing and tighten it down with a little silicone oil on all the O-rings. Doesn't even have to be tight, just hand tight. You can put this valve in here the same way. Put a little oil on the O-ring. Put this valve in here, right? Now you can hook your air tank up to this and put air in it, and this will read your tank pressure to 4,500, right? And you can leave this hooked up, and this will show your regulator pressure. And you want to start off by loosening this nut and turning this thing in a little bit, about maybe one turn. Tighten the nut back down, just snug it so it won't move anymore, right? Now when you put air in this thing, the tank pressure will come up, and this will show your regulator pressure. And if you're trying to hit 2,200 or 23 or 24, you can start backing this screw out until that comes up where you want it. Lock the nut down. And to test this, to see how it recovers, or if it needs any break-in time or anything like that, all you would really have to do is take something like this plastic hammer and tap on it. A lot of air is going to blow out of that little hole right there, like you're shooting a gun, right? So don't be looking at that thing. Anyway, you would tap this. This gauge here will move down and back up. When you hit it, it releases the air, and the needle will drop, and then it'll come right back up, right? That shows you how fast it recovers between shots. Also, it tells you if it recovered to the exact same point that you set the regulator at by testing it like that a few times, right? Now, if you went too high and you need to lower it again, you don't even have to unhook your air hose from this thing. This one has a cool little feature. This little, I don't have the right size set screw, but this little set screw right here, this is actually a valve, right? It's not just a set screw. If you turn that valve all the way in, and it's not much, just turn it in a little bit, it shuts the air off from all this to the inside of this. It turns the air off, so you don't lose any air from your bottle if you have a bottle on it. Anyway, I'm wrong. You do have to turn the pressure off to the fill port. But anyway, you don't have to totally degas everything. And all you got to do is pop this a couple times, and this will be empty. It'll quit making noise. You can push the valve in with your finger. Now, you can loosen the nut and screw this back in. Like I said, if you went too far counterclockwise, you can do that under pressure. You have to have this thing empty to lower the pressure, right? So you can always turn this back in a little bit, snug the nut up a little bit, and start turning this valve slow until this pressure comes up to where you want it to. Anyway, you'll only need that if you're setting the gun up for the very first time, before this is even on the gun. And even then, you don't have to have it. You can screw the bottle on. These are the same threads that the bottle takes. You can screw the bottle on there and you do it the same way. Fill the bottle, and then when you close this valve, no more air will come out of the bottle. It literally shuts this thing off. No more air will come out of the bottle into the regulator. So you don't have to degas your entire bottle every time you want to change the regulator settings to lower it. Increasing is no problem, but lowering it is where you start tearing up the regulator, the O-rings that are in it. Anyway, so that little thing right there is kind of handy. I like the idea of that, being able to shut my bottle off. Also, if you've ever experienced a leaking air gun, and I know a lot of you have, I don't fix mine if they're leaking just a little bit. I work on air guns all the time. I work on my stuff all the time, but I don't fix my air guns if they have a small leak. If they're dumping air, I fix them. That's kind of handy because I can turn my bottle off on a gun that maybe leaked down over a couple of weeks time. I can turn the bottle off and save that air that's in that bottle. When I'm ready to shoot again, loosen that screw up a little bit and the pressure will come up on both of these. And I don't have to fill that bottle from empty. Anyway, this would screw on there. You'd have to sand this thing. Some people have put bigger O-rings in here than what belong in them. Slightly bigger. And when they tighten this down, as long as that O-ring goes down inside that little groove right there, can't really get a good shot of it, I don't think. As long as the O-ring will go down inside this little lead right here, it will seal. You can't have all your O-ring hanging out the sides. It'll blow the O-ring out. But as long as it squished it down in there pretty close, it's probably going to hold and not do you any harm. So you can squish that O-ring and tighten this thing down inside on the gun until it hangs straight down the way you want it to, right? When you put air pressure to it, it won't move anymore. You'll have to really grab a hold of it to make it turn. The air pressure will cease all that movement. And anyway, so this one's a little bit different. This piece that comes out isn't the same as the one I showed you in the previous one. All right, those are not paintball threads. Those are different, and a paintball tank will not screw into this thing. And I thought that this would be an absolutely fabulous idea if you could screw this onto your gun and then screw your regulated paintball tank into this, and you could have yourself a little mini FX thing going on here with a dual regulator. You could have this one set to say 2500 and this one set to say 2200, and you'd have a dual regulator system. FX claims that is the cat daddy of the Maverick and all that stuff. So maybe it would do some good with this. I don't really know. Anyway, I'm not sure if the new Panther or Dynamic use a dual regulator, but since they put it on the newest M3, which is their flagship gun, I would assume that those other ones do, but I've not studied one up close to really be able to tell. So this is the magic part for me, because this has this valve in it that shuts the tank off. I feel like that's going to be a big help. Am I screwing that on the wrong end? Yeah. So anyway, this is the exact same regulator as the next one I'm going to show you, only different, right? You'll notice the sides of this thing, how it looks, right? Pay attention to that. The next one I'm going to show you is the one from Canada. And this is Airgun Archery Fun, I think. And he sells this part, which is this part, with this. And he's already done the work of matching I'm sure you got a box full of these and several of these regulators. He matches these up so that they're timed and aligned right. And all you have to do is take a long Allen wrench, and there's two screws go right here. They're right there. at the top of this thing. So you unscrew your air cylinder off and remove it. Take this piece off. There's a screw here. I think you have to take the whole pistol grip off. I'm not 100% on that yet, but or the trigger assembly. Anyway, those two screws, all you have to do is put this thing on, lube this O-ring, and he does include a little jar of silicone grease to put on this O-ring, and you can bolt that thing on there. This has a similar setup where it has a little test cap that you don't have to put a bottle on there to set this thing up to get it to work right, and then worry about having to empty the bottle. Right? It has the same thing on it, but it doesn't have that little valve in here that shuts the air off to it. So that's going to be handy if you're setting this thing up for the first time and you already know what pressure you want to hit. If you go over, then it's as simple as unhooking your air supply and cocking and shooting the gun a few times until both these gauges read 0. Then you can safely loosen the nut and turn the screw in and lower the pressure again, and you have a second chance at getting it, and you didn't use a lot of air. Some guys are hand pumping these things or not, you know. You don't have to lose all the air. Anyway, that little thing's going to be a lot more handier for this. The other one that's got the valve in it, not so much. I don't have to worry about dumping all the air out of the bottle. Since this gun is dialed in, zeroed, and shoots really good. This is just shooting as good as it possibly can. I hate to mess with this gun. It's killing me. Anyway, lucky for me, I have a second one. And this one is box stock. Nothing done to it at all. I did buy the Carm magazines, and I think I have this True Glow red dot on it that came with some other gun that I got secondhand, and I have it zeroed, and my kids have been shooting this gun, and they absolutely love shooting this gun. It's small, it's lightweight, doesn't weigh much for them. They're pretty handy. Sometimes they have a little problem getting this pulled back in one smooth pull, right? Sometimes, not all the time, but a lot of times they'll grab it and get it back to where it's almost ready to cock. The magazine will index and they just can't do it the rest of the way, so they let it go. So we've had a talk. They know that if they don't get it pulled back all the way the first time, to stop what they're doing and get me. So anyway, we're going to remove the air tube on this one and the stock, and I believe we have to take this screw out and maybe the whole trigger assembly. Maybe the whole grip frame assembly to get this block out. I'm not really 100% sure. It looks like that plastic Picatinny rail goes over the shroud. It looks like that sticks down below it a little bit. So I'm not sure how that would, come out of there unless this whole thing was loose and could come down a little bit so that could come out. And we're not going to do anything with this, but we are going to see how easy this is to bolt this thing on, and we're going to screw a bottle on it and get the regulator set, and see what kind of damage we can do by just simple bolt on. It's supposed to be bolt on, no mods, no milling, no anything like that. It's supposed to be bolt on, so that's what I'm going for. These were roughly $100 to my door from Canada. And it's because it comes with this part, and the guy did the work to sort these to find one that fits this the best with an O-ring, and they're put together. He doesn't want you to take them apart. He's then put them together and pressure tested them to make sure that they seal and work, and he ships them to you. So let me get some tools ready, and we'll tear this thing apart and see just exactly what we got to do with it. Alright, for this part I went ahead and removed the stock with the 4 small screws that hold it on. And you have to make sure, of course, that your gun is completely out of air, right? And there's a way to do that without shooting it down. and I'll show you that right now. So you can take this screw out and this screw back here, and you're going to need a 2, 2.5, and a 3 millimeter Allen wrench to get these out. Hope this is in frame. Anyway, so we're going to take these screws out. Now, this is important. I want you to hold this gun before you remove the pistol grip assembly. I want you to hold the gun like this to take that screw out. Right? There's a good reason for this. When you pull this thing down, I want you to look right there. See that little spring? You do not want to have to search your whole house looking for that little spring, because those things have a way of disappearing and never coming back. So we're not going to lose that if we drop this straight down. Right? And if you will look right there, right? That is your degassing screw. You put a flathead screwdriver in there, loosen that up, and it'll start losing air. Right? When all the air is gone, you can usually grab this thing and just start turning it. If it won't do that for you, right? If you're squeamish about this stuff, maybe just leave your gun alone. Anyway, that's the answer. You just open them up to where they'll fit. Grab a hold of that thing right there, and you just have to give it a little turn. Hang onto it tight, and it won't scratch it. I left some very, very, very tiny marks in mine. Right there. You probably can't even see the mark. Anyway, I left a little tiny mark in it right there. And that's no worry to me, because this is, you know, not going back on the gun. And even if it did get a little scratch in it, I'm really not that fussy about that stuff. So anyway, you're going to unscrew the whole air tube out of the gun. Set that aside. And we are also going to remove the barrel, because those two screws right there won't come out with this plastic Picatinny rail on here. These two have got to come out. Those two have got to come out. So we're going to go ahead and remove the barrel from the gun, and that's not the end of the world. We're going to... This thing's in there usually pretty tight. I've already disassembled this gun to make sure that there are no surprises, and maybe, you know, help cut down on the length of this video. I don't know if you guys have watched any of my other videos, but I really don't make them to be YouTube famous. I make them to get the point across as quick as I can, and without, you know, you having to sit there and watch a lot of boring video. It's already boring enough, I think. And it's a little hard to get out of there. Doesn't want to just fall out, that's for sure. Now, once you take that screw out, this won't come off. It'll wiggle, it'll move around, but it's not coming off. There is another screw. This one is a 2.5. This one is a 2 millimeter, I believe. Yeah. So down inside there, you're going to find another screw in the same hole. So you make sure you got a good Allen wrench, not a junk one. You go get a good one and make sure you're holding it down tight. While you loosen that up, if you strip that little screw out, you're not getting any of this apart. So we don't have to take this all the way out. All we got to do is loosen this up several turns, and it's good enough. It doesn't need to come all the way out the top or anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold the receiver in one hand and hold the barrel and the Picatinny rail in the other hand, and wiggle a little bit. And I think I unscrewed that too far. Anyway, wiggle a little bit and it comes right out. There's nothing to it. That other set screw is right there, right inside there. It appears to have a little Loctite in it, coming up on the threads. It's nothing to worry about. We'll take a small pick and get that out of there. Only so my Allen wrench fits back down in that hole nice and I don't strip that little Allen screw out. Alright, so that's that. Another thing I want to note to you guys is the holes in there where these two screw holes are on top. The holes that are down inside there can be sharp, right? They don't deburr them really great. It's not really a big concern. But if you were to get in here and start looking at these O-rings that are on either side of the barrel port, you would notice that these two O-rings will have a nick in them, usually in line with it. You're going to nick them. They nicked them, if it's got a sharp edge, they nicked them when they put them in the factory. You can lose sleep over it or put the gun back together, go find some new O-rings to put in there. If you don't deburr the holes in here, you're going to nick them as soon as you shove it back in. So it's, it really doesn't make too big a deal. No air pressure is on this until you fire the gun. This momentary pop, that's the only air pressure that's on these two O-rings. It doesn't do anything. If you were to put a tissue over it and it moved the tissue, you may have a problem. You may have something you want to replace the O-ring in or whatever. So, if you have one of these and a 3mm, that's going to be a big help getting these guys out, because this Allen wrench here only goes so far. If you put it like this, it only goes so far. Maybe if you had one that had a little ball nose on the end of it, you could hold it out to the side and spin it. But I just happen to have these. And another thing I want to point out to you is that right in this area right here is a spring, and that spring is the poppet valve. So it actually does the work during the shot cycle. So if I take these two screws out, and you don't want to get these two mixed up with the other two because they're different size. If I take these two screws out, come on, almost there. Now I'm going to hold this thing because it's got a little spring pressure on it, and I really don't want it to move. I'm going to loosen this up, and that goes really fast if you have one of these T-handles. See the difference in the size of these screws? The ones on the back side of this are much bigger. You would not want to try to swap these around. Can you see that thing moving? That's how much spring pressure is in it. So we're going to remove this last screw. Hopefully we don't let this thing fly. And just like that, we've got part number 66 off. There's the inner valve spring for the poppet valve, the spring guide, and the valve stem itself. See that? I want you guys to look at this because there is no plastic seal on this thing right here. This drops down inside there. Most of these things have got a plastic end on the valve stem. This one's just a cap and basically a spring guide. Not much of a spring guide either, but that goes on there. And when I took mine off, I looked down inside there. You'll never get to see it real good, I don't guess, but that's a lot of trash in the bottom of that. That'll come right out of that one with a Q-tip, but we're not going to use this one right now. What we are interested in doing is installing this one. And to install this one, we're going to use our silicone oil. Now this thing comes with a little tiny jar of grease, right? And it doesn't matter if you use the grease or the oil. One's as good as the other. But if you'll go look for that stuff on Amazon, it's called Super Lube. Silicone oil, 100% food grade. I want to say it was $6, and there's 4 ounces in here, and I've had this one for like 3 years, maybe 4 years now, maybe longer. I don't know. It's for sure not half empty, and I have a lot of air guns that I've used this on. So I'm just gonna put a little silicone oil on this O-ring. More is better than not enough. All right, and this is where it gets a little bit hard, because that spring has actually got a little pressure to it. So when I push this thing on here and get my screw in place, it's kind of hard to hold in there while I screw this. It wants to come out, but as long as you got the screw started without cross threading it or stripping it, it'll sort of pull down there pretty good all by itself. Now I got one screw in. Before I tighten it down, I'm fixing to put the smaller screw in on the opposite corner of that one. And remember what I was telling you, if you had these things, they'd be handy. Well, I don't have one that small, so this won't spin around and around for me. Somewhere I'm sure I have the ones with the little ball nose on the end of them that they would work better, but I don't know where they are. I have a lot of stuff, I don't know where it's at. Every now and then I find an air gun that I didn't know that I had, forgot that I had. It's terrible to be air gun poor. I don't know if I can speed this up and, you know, edit the video and speed this up so the video is not that long. I know we're getting pretty long on the video now. I don't know about you guys, but I hate to watch a long video that doesn't really get to the point. Now this one I can snug up a little bit because I've got it one on the other side lined up pretty good. These don't have to be super tight either. For the love of God, don't strip these out. Just put them in, snug them a little bit, and leave it. Will absolutely not make it seal any better, perform any better, nothing. They're not going to vibrate out. Just put them in, give them a little snug, and you'll be good. See, I'm not even really working at it. And then I'll snug this one a little bit. Get the other screw put in. We're almost ready to put this thing back together all the way. If I do another one of these, I will make sure that I have a 2.5mm T-handle for this part right here. Just gonna check all of them before I go any further. Make sure they all 4 of them feel good. If you've used that screw to degas your gun, make sure you tighten it back down before you assemble everything again. Get a little bit of this excess oil off of here. It's all over my fingers. Too much is better than not enough though. And that's it. If you look down inside there, you can see the hammer. It's a little tiny thing. It doesn't weigh very much. Got a little spring behind it. The spring is actually stronger than the factory regulator is set for. And you'll see this one, I haven't moved it. It's turned down in there a few threads. I don't know how far down in it is, but probably close to max. These don't have a lot of adjustment, but that spring's already really stiff, so it opens the valve as far as the valve can possibly open, even if you back this all the way out. I hardly got any adjustment at all with my first Notos at all. So that told me that the spring was probably stronger than it needed to be. So they got the regulator on these first ones set. I can't remember what they are. They're set 1900-ish, somewhere in there. And that's because it's such a tiny air tube. This regulator right here, this is it. It's about that long inside here, right? And this cap right here, right, is almost as long inside here as it is sticking out. It's pretty close to the same inside this tube. So if you can imagine, from my thumb to my thumb, that's all the more air tube you actually have. That's it. That's not a lot of air tube. I don't know how long that is, but that's not a lot of air tube. So they have the regulator set kind of low, and that's what gives you a little bit better shot count for such a tiny air cylinder. So I want to say my first one got 21 shots, which is 3 mags per fill. And anyway, this is going to give you considerably more. And we're going to go ahead and start putting her back together. Alright, here we go. My battery was dying. Got her charged up. Now we're going to put this together. Make sure that spring right there goes inside that little hole and lines up good. Just like that. And then we'll put our little screw in the back. If I haven't already told you, pay attention to where you pull these screws out of. There's a flat head and a button head, I think it's called. This one's the flat head, the button head goes in the back. The one I just put in. That's that. We have got that part together. Now, I'm going to pull this barrel back out after I'm done, because I'm going to do some dimensions on it. And I have a brand spanking new 22 caliber Lothar Walther barrel in my lathe right now, waiting to go into one of these guns. I think it's going to be this one. We're going to add a little bit of length to it, make a custom moderator. Get in there. We'll hold that stuff and set it back in there. And my barrel port should be pointing down. And if I don't move this, it's just as simple as tightening these screws back up. There is a little dimple in this thing right here. When you start tightening this screw down, there's a dimple in the barrel. And when this screw starts to meet that little dimple, it'll kind of align the barrel. It'll go down inside of it and make the barrel twist the way it wants it to go. And it should line the barrel port up good for you. If you notice that something seems wrong with the power or something like that, you might want to pull it back apart and make sure you got that barrel lined up. There's that. There's one little screw to put in top here. We're almost done with this work. Now don't get carried away with these things, but this one needs to be snug, because it's what holds this Picatinny rail on, right? You've already seen that this is a plastic Picatinny rail, and it can be sensitive to over torquing the whatever mount you use. I like to use a one-piece mount on this thing on the very front half, but if you take these off and look, there is an actual dovetail under this and a little bit in the back. You can't really see it on the back, but anyway, you can see it on the front. If you look down inside there, you can see that that's an actual dovetail. So anyway, that's that much of it. Let's Let's put the stock back on it. Little tiny screws. When I first put these screws in, they felt a little bit stiff on both of my Notos. They didn't go down in those holes nice and smooth like I wanted, and I was kind of worried. But after I put them in and took them back out, they fit. Maybe, I don't know, maybe just the new screw needed to have the threads worn in a little bit. I don't know. But they seem to go in nice and easy after that initial putting them in. Now, I don't tighten these all the way down when I first put them on. I snug them up with, you know, just the least amount of force as I can get them snugged up with. Because I want this thing actually loose when I put them in the other side, in case I have to wiggle it. If you tighten that side down, this side may not wiggle. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sort of afraid of cross-threading these little bitty screws. We have almost got this whooped. Alright, now I can go ahead and tighten all four of them down. And that's those. Now, I want to show you the bottles that I've got. I actually have this little bottle. It is a 0.2 or a 0.22 or a 220 cc bottle. There's a screw on there, and with a little silicone oil on that ring, it'll tighten down. It does not have to be torqued. Don't get crazy with it. You just want to hand tighten everything, you know. And that's how that one's going to look on there. I don't know if you can get a good look at this with this camera this close, but that's how that one's going to look. This is the other side. And let me snug this up just a little bit more. Like that. And then get it in frame there. I will show you this one side by side with it. I think that that's about lined up lengthwise. Of course, this one has a bigger bottle on it. And this one's even bigger yet. This one is a 0.42 or a 420 cc bottle. And that's the smallest one that I can find for this thing. That fits the threads of this. You can get a slightly smaller one if you're worried about weight or size, and you're going to have a lot of shots. Even with the smallest bottle, which this is the smallest bottle that I've found. It's not much smaller, but it's smaller in diameter than this bottle. And the difference is this is a 5/8 thread and this is a M18 thread. So you would have to make this piece to fit the other bottle. And this is the largest bottle that I have. And that's the size difference of the smallest to the largest. And we'll screw this one in there for giggles just to see how it looks with this one on it. You see, we still have plenty of clearance under the barrel. It's not even relatively close. That's probably a 1/2 to 5/8 of an inch. I have no idea how many shots this thing will get with this 420cc bottle on it, but I'm going to guess a lot. You know, a couple hundred anyway, maybe more. But what I do have the ability to do, it wastes a lot of air, but if I turn this regulator up to 2400 psi, I can get roughly 24 foot-pounds out of this gun without doing any internal mods, without opening up any of the ports or anything, and it just the way it is, I can get roughly 24 foot-pounds out of it. And but it wastes a lot of air. I actually saw a little bit of loss in velocity in my accuracy in my other gun when I turned it up that high. But at 30 yards, it really didn't make any difference. We're talking about, it was probably a 1/4 inch bigger group, which is, you know, if you're gonna hunt with this thing, that's plenty acceptable. That's, you know, just know your limitations for the range you want to shoot. This one will probably still give you a couple hundred shots at that power level at 24 foot-pounds. So there it is with the large bottle on it. All we got to do is go air it up, and I'm going to loosen that nut up right there, and I'm fixing to turn this screw in a little bit, maybe one turn, before I ever put any air in it. And you can always increase the pressure, but you can't decrease it without emptying the bottle. Remember that. Do not do it. I don't care if they tell you, well, you can, you know, turn it a little bit and shoot the gun a couple times, and turn it a little bit and shoot the gun a couple times. The long story short, you're fixing to eventually fail and screw up that seat inside the regulator, and you'll be looking for a replacement. So there it is. I don't know how much this thing weighs. I'll get some weights on this thing, and we'll air this thing up, and I'll put that in another video, because this one's already probably 3 times as long as I wanted it to be. There it is, guys.